What do you think to Black History Month?
Black History Month? Well,
it used to be something that we used to, when I was in school, we learned more about it, but now I'm at uni, we don't learn much about it. And like October comes, don't see that much of it, like, being taught.
I suppose it helps us to recognise what Black people has achieved over the centuries, and it's a way of educating the young people who's coming through about our culture.
I think Black History Month is a time or a season where Black people, all the Black people, Nigeria, Ghana, name it, come together to, either do something or just remember Black History Month. Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to have a Black History Month, there should be some advertising about it or something.
Yeah, more of an ongoing process.
Yeah.
It's almost an insult to still have Black History Month. It's history, it's world history.
History Month is just today that I've heard of. I haven't heard of anything like that before.
You have not heard of it before?
No.
Where are you from?
I'm from Ghana.
It's a month designated for us to acknowledge our history.
History Month.
I'm not sure I know what that is.
What do I think of Black History Month?
Good, man, they're good for Black people, innit?
We should be more creative at the minute.
I think it's something that everyone should be aware of. I think like every other ethnic group, or white group, or people that have some knowledge about their history, about who they are and where they're from.
It's a good thing for young people, especially in the educational system, to get to know a little bit about the heritage and about their culture.
I think it's very important because so many of us as Black people are at a loss for identity.
And more about where they came from in order to help them as they grow older to know where they're going and how they can push their people forward into more positive.
And I think for Black History Month only brings it back full circle so we can understand just who we are.
It's a celebration of, our ancestors.
How do you feel about Black History Month and how it's perceived or seen in Nottingham and within Nottingham communities?
They like it. They like to celebrate it because as a culture it helps us to come together.
I think for we Blacks, I think it's okay. But I don't know how other people, other tribes and other traditions see it as here. I don't know.
It's yesterday at work, a lady asked me, she's never heard of Black History Month before. And I found that quite strange that she's never come across it, even though she's British and she's always lived there, she's gone to school, and she's never heard of it until it came on the news yesterday.
I feel like by people that don't understand Black History Month, they can think that it's just the basis of just Black people and slavery and all of the bad things that happened about Black history. But actually it's about the positives as well. It's about all of the different people in the Black community that have come together to make it what it is today.
People like us will think it's very significant. There are a lot of people don't care.
But sometimes the positive people get overlooked, and it's all about the negative things that Black people have gone through, and we fail to see the progressions that we've also gone through as well.
Because of the labelling, it excludes people, and I understand and I appreciate having times that are just moments for Black people to get together and share their experiences, and mourn together and celebrate together and, heal together. However, there's a body of work that I believe needs to be done for those that have been a part of some of the suffering that we have faced as a people, to be able to sit down and begin to open that dialogue that is required. If we just talk to ourselves about our issues, how do we change anything?
Have you been involved in anything towards Black History Month?
No, I haven't. I haven't been involved.
Because I've never ever taken part in it before.
Not quite really, but I've been to Nigerian New Yam Festival, the Igbo Nigerian New Yam Festival. I think it's related to Black History Month because we are all blacks. Yeah.
Not really, but I've seen it and I've heard about it. I've listened to Marcus Garvey's speech a lot.
Yeah, I did one before in my children's school. We had to dress like, I'm from Nigeria, so we had to dress like my culture and cook some of my food.
Not that I can say no.
Well, I've been to the carnival. I haven't taken part in the carnival.
I've been involved in Black History Month before, yes.
No, I haven't actually.
What do you feel should be achieved?
Well, more of an awareness.
What do you think? It's more to get people together.
Together to do something, maybe in the park, like organize like big events. Not just like in the indoor, like, the field, for example, in the forest field, they can actually do something bigger,
And a lot of dialogue, a lot of talk, a lot of focus on it. On Black history itself.
I think there should be something achieved about it, like a big, massive performance about it.
It's true, they need to teach these schools about Black history, because at the end of the day, this country that we are living in, part of it or most of it was built by the blacks, our forefathers.
Mainly unity and celebrating the culture.
Educate our young people.
So at least the people in there going to the school need to learn something about it, so that when they see us, the black people there, they don't feel that, oh, where this person coming from, or where is this person is here.
It'd be good for people to actually realize that what we've been through and how far we've come.
Most of our kids were born here and they don't know anything about Africa, they don't know anything about Jamaica. We need to teach them and let them know their roots.
Generate a kind of like curriculum-based learning sense just for people to pick up and learn.
It should achieve respect and acknowledgement for the contributions that our forefathers and mothers and whoever have done for us to be here today.
Black History Month needs to have parts of it that are inclusive.
Black History Month should be achieved educating other cultures, not just black people, but other cultures as well, into our ways, into our nationality, our society, the different places that we come from, celebrating the different heritages of black people, because we've got the Caribbeans, we've got people that are African, we've got black people that come from loads and loads of different places, that, we should be able to celebrate the different places that we're from and, come together as one people.
If there was a museum where people could go and see these things, then young people will be more involved. Say, for instance, the Black History Museum in Nottingham, you wouldn't have to be going 31 days, you'd be going there every day.
What works well now, to be honest, I don't think it's working that much, like in my age groups, because it's not out there. So whatever's been doing, it's not really working.
Why is it only a month for a start?
In the 80s, it was more prominent, right? There was a lot of people involved. Those people, it's like they're tired now. It's like they put down the banner, and it hasn't been passed on to like another generation. So you've got a few people who's left. If you look at the people who are still involved, right? They are the same ones who originally was promoting Black history. You know what I mean? So you haven't really got many young people who's taking it on.
What's working well? It's very hard at the minute because I don't think we're sticking together.
Okay.
And where we can't stick, the works cannot be manifest.
For me, it should be taught in schools. We're not taught anything about Black history in schools, and it's got to start at a younger age, if you ask me.
The lack of information. We've only got selected information to work with, and again, because it's a month, it's only a short period of time to relay that information back.
My personal opinion, what doesn't work, I don't think as black people we're supporting our race enough to make people understand who we actually are. We're a very powerful race, and we're looked at as a very disgraced race. and I think that can change.
Yeah.
To me, my suggestion is you need to go out there with more promotion. And you need to do it not just at Black History Month, we need to do it throughout the year.
My history, or history should not be relegated to a specific month.
It should be a longer period of time.
I don't think the month of October is enough for us to really get the benefit.
1 month is good till, but if you can carry on, that's all right too. But Black History Month just don't mean today as in a Black History Month. It means forever, because I stick in this black skin forever.
I personally think it should be longer because we are not just black for 31 days. We are black right through the years.
Specifically, it should be something like a 1 month so that people will come together and like what you people are saying, that we sit together and we discuss and we plan for the future for our kids and those who will come after us.
It's not just one thing, you know, black history isn't black history. This is my life. I'm a black male. This is, you know, this is what I live. So it's not just, you know, I'm not going to celebrate where I come from just for 1 month and then forget about it for the other, you know, 11 months of the year. It's who I am. It's embedded in my roots and my family's roots. I go through this all the time.
I don't think you can cover the whole history in a month.
We're all significant, but I think that black people have gotten a very short end of the stick when it comes to recognition about who they are. And because of it, you know what I'm saying, they've lost their self-value, their self-worth, you know what I'm saying, over a lot of years. And it's gonna take a lot of years to regain and to bring this back, you know what I'm saying, the significance of who they are. You know, and 31 days is too short of a time to try to put that in focus.
The filmmaker Ione, local black filmmaker. So they managed to really, you know, the time they were on the street, sort of directly approaching people, they managed to capture some great responses. I would say particularly the elders in the group were a bit nervous about interviewing people, and then once they got out there, they were pretty incredible about you know, approaching people, and really got into, you know, approaching and interviewing people and getting the responses that you see in that film. That film was also followed by, we did a panel discussion, again, exploring that issue of, you know, Black History Month now and how it could be in the future.
Yeah. Thank you, Bo. That's brilliant. Thank you for that kind of description of that project. And so we're going to go into an open discussion. And this open discussion will be centered around 2 key questions. What is the value of Black History Month in Nottingham, firstly, and then more broadly in the UK? And then what are the urgencies for Black communities right now? What is impacting Black communities? And what should we be focusing on during Black History Month and beyond that? Because partly about this program is that this conversation is a starting point for a long period of kind of investigation into what Black communities need. Is that physical space? Is that a hub for Black life? Is that focusing on Black queer narratives? Is that intersectionality? You know, and it's about investigating this with the community, with audiences, having an open conversation within our own organization, and really feeling accountable that we're delivering events, programs, projects that doesn't just center Black people in Black History Month, but also all year round. So I'm going to pose that question around what the value of Black History Month is to the rest of the speakers, and then have an open conversation about that. Does somebody want to start?
Okay, I'll start. I think first and foremost, looking at a local lens, there's a real power to telling our stories. I mentioned earlier that we all have blind spots, even from within our own communities. And so my experience being a Black woman growing up in Nottingham is going to be like vastly different from a Black woman growing up in London, in Scotland, in Yorkshire. And so I think it's really important for the platforms that do exist. So, for example, Black Ballads, their recent efforts, and commissions around, working with regional writers and editors is really profound, because they place their emphasis as part of their core remit is around, raising the stories of Black women living outside of the capital control. So I think that's in that respect, it's really important. And then regarding my sector in music, I think as a result of, the George Floyd killing that sparked the global civil rights movement again, served as a catalyst for music to address racism and inequalities in music. And I think that forced the industry to really ask themselves some, serious questions, to essentially begin conversations, to hold themselves accountable so that they can create and sustain change. But without, Black organizations, Black movements, Black people who care about these things, being almost the engine behind this, such as, people behind, Blackout Tuesday, the show must be paused, these conversations wouldn't be happening, so, again, to give credit where it's due, I really appreciate, people who set up groups such as like the Black Music Coalition, for example. Black Bandcamp is another example of key initiatives that are fighting to create systemic change in the industry. So of course they're recognizing what's happened before, but it's also looking at, okay, how do we reimagine a future, because ultimately we can't live in the past. But it is very important for us to know that in order to know where we're going, it's important to know where we're coming from, but it's super important to not get stuck in the past either, so I'm really encouraged by what's happening right now. To be honest with you, I'm pretty tired with everything that's happening, not just because it's October, it's Black History Month. It does feel like a different vibe, to be honest, because there's obviously police brutality, as well as just, our lived nuances, our different, lived experiences that we face on the daily. But there is much to still be optimistic about and hopeful about. And I think for me anyway, like what I'm seeing right now, I think there is a sense of like, there's definitely more community, there's more collaboration, but also like, I think people are wanting to kind of heal. And I think that in itself is Blackness. That's where we're at, people are tired, people want to heal, people want to transcend, I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you so much. Does anyone else want to feed into that? Henry?
Okay. Thank you. First of all, let me say thank you so much for all the hands that put the video together. It was fantastic to share that experience and hearing people who would never know the history or never heard about Black History Month before. And this are some few things that I experienced, I share from that video that I would like to discuss it here. So relating to the question of value and the impact of Black history in our community, this is where we live. In particularly, we talk about Black history in Europe. Like I said in the previous talk, we don't talk about the Black history in Africa. We don't talk about the Black history in Caribbean. We don't, and it's not that there are no great people there. It's not that there are no wonderful people. Regardless, they classify us as a third world country. It's not that the country is not functioning. It's functioning. This is going wonderful. This is going great. So let's not forget, we have to celebrate ourselves. We have to encourage ourselves. We have to let people know what we value, what importance of our heritage. Like to teach our children, generation to come in schools. Back in London, in museums, there are treasures of Nigeria. And I'll not use the word stolen or took from Africa, bring it here, and we have to spend money to watch or to look what belongs to us. And down the line, we're celebrating Black History Month. So this is our value. So what kind of access are we going to have to this when it comes to Black History Month? I believe personally, especially when it comes to Black History Month, the museum should not be taking any money from anybody visiting that museum when it comes to celebration of Black History Month, because most of the things in there in London in that museum there belongs to Blacks or Africans or Caribbeans, where we have to spend money to watch our own thing where what it belongs to us. That's one of our values that we need to look into. I want people to know. The impact is the education, where we educate ourselves, the important things that we need to know. So how we can integrate in the environment with no any kind of discrimination, whereby equal opportunities. It is true, we campaign for equal opportunity, we campaign for diversity, but we even spend money doing it over and over, yet not 100% equal. There is no any equal rights anywhere. There is no any equal opportunity anywhere. And we still face that criticism. So how are we going to tackle that so that the impact can be known or it can be seen within ourselves? That's my contribution to that.
Thank you so much for that. I completely agree what you're talking about there, especially about museum spaces. We need to open up our spaces, especially at NAE, for people to use that space for gatherings, to collectively organize, it belongs to the community. Public spaces belong to the public. And so they need to be accessible, so that point about, paying to go and see shows around Black history, it's creating that barrier. So I definitely agree with you, Henry, on that. Anyone else want to feed into that? Lisa?
Yeah, I'll go to Shan.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay, mine's quite quick, to be fair. So for me personally, and probably Next Gen as a whole, I think the impact Black History Month has, and particularly this year with everything that's happened, is in regards to the youth. Particularly, obviously, we do a lot of youth work, but it's really allowed us to sort of get the youth to listen, because I know that when I was at school, I didn't even know about Black History Month. We weren't told about it at all. And it's allowed Next Gen to actually go into schools and, teach Black history, not teaching them about slavery, but teaching them about actual Black history, like Black inventors, Black artists, Black entrepreneurs. And they seem more receptive to it now than they might have done. And I don't know if that's the pandemic and then the whole George Floyd thing, and like everyone was kind of almost forced to pay attention to it, and it's now opened their minds to learning about where they come from and who they actually are. So I really like the impact that Black History Month has definitely had this year, particularly on the youth, and we're all about empowering them. So yeah, and I think it's a good way to lead into getting the curriculum decolonized as well. So I'm currently doing a lot of work. I work at the University of Nottingham as well as my full-time job. So I'm currently working with the EDI team there to work to get the curriculum decolonised. And hopefully, I think Next Gen will probably be looking to work with the Black curriculum as well, because they're doing some amazing work.
Thank you so much. Lisa?
Yeah, I was doing a little bit of research into the origins of Black History Month. So I was looking at a historian called Carter Goodwin Woodson, and he actually started up Negro History Week in 1926. But he didn't start it off as something to remain as a week. So he started it off as a movement, but it became sort of a victim of its own success, and it became an end and not the means by which we should be celebrating Black history. So it remained as a week for like 50 years. And then it became Black History Month in 1976. And we still have it now, some nearly another 50 years later. So my thing, I guess, is going forward is, do we want to be here in another 50 years still having a Black History Month, or do we actually want to move beyond Black History Month? The work that Next Gen is doing is absolutely fantastic. It's obviously really needed, but why is it still needed? You know, I don't debate that it is needed, but why is it still needed? So I would say, let's a few of us get together and realise Carter Woodson's legacy, really, and get us moved beyond Black History Month into a time where Black history is global history. It's just taught as part of history.
Danielle?
Well, basically, this month is like our Pride Month, I suppose. Like we're here to celebrate the fact that like Black people are the most diverse people on the planet, and through that diversity, for which all of us exist, we all come in with different shades. We have so many different cultures and subcultures. We have so many different native tongues. Like, we are past, present, and future, and that's what I try to promote with my art as well. Like, I see Black people as like superheroes working on like the regular people, and like this month is just to highlight our experiences and our joy, and like, yeah, we just come together and stuff. Yeah.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to come in on that point? Henry? And Henry, could you unmute your mic for me, please?
Sorry. Yeah, I don't know why this is so important to me, because if everybody tried to understand where I'm coming from, if Africa is Africa, and if there is no colonization, and we won't be talking about Black History Month, do we? And the pain and the art time, the hardship, the sufferingness, and the Blacks being through, it's what's making us to sit down today and be talking about making it in a better way. If we have a good government or good governor who is governing the Black, because I sat down sometimes, I just look at it, I couldn't figure out one single Black country that I could say, oh, I want to go and say, yes, it's law-abiding, free and fair country, or yes. So is it because of the pain that make that to be the way it is, or is it because being Black, we are just adamant, like it's difficult to understand, to get it? So we should be looking for when we're going to stop celebrating the Black History Month, and now saying when we're going to be living in a life, just like, let me say, we have lots of white people in Nigeria that lives there fine, like me saying, oh, they want to do celebration of White History Month. How would that sound? I don't know how is that going to be sound like we celebrate. They're achieving something as well. We have Chinans all over Nigeria building railways, building bridges, building all these things. So does that mean in decades, in 20 years time, they're going to be celebrating China Years Month because of what they have come to the country to achieve? So we should see ourselves as same thing, equal, born equally, talented differently. Let us materialize, use our talent in a different manner, in a different way, approach things and make it happen. Not we want to celebrate and we want to dwell in it. That's my thing to say.
Yeah. Colleen, do you want to come in?
From a psychotherapeutic perspective, so I set up in Nottingham about a year ago, and within that year I noticed there wasn't any Black clients coming forward at all, and that really alarmed me, especially with the stuff that was happening globally, you know, with the George Floyd and just the wave of panic and anxiety that everybody else in my practice was experiencing. So I approached our Naked Truths that are based in London and the National Black Crown Prosecution Service to hold talks, to take the therapy to the people, to show them that there is services that are out there, especially for Black people. And, you know, interestingly, people started accessing those services. So sometimes it's about us, like all the other speakers have said, about going to the people and educating people and showing people that there is, you know, that there are services out there to support and educate.
Yeah, yeah. And does anyone else want to come in on that point? If not, we'll move on to the next question. Okay, so I'm going to ask the question around urgency. So I'm also going to pass it on to Carleen to kind of moderate this section until about 3 o'clock. And at about 3 o'clock, we're going to put it to the rest of the audience to kind of ask questions to the panel and to and for the panel to kind of answer those questions. So we'll select a few questions in the chat function, and then also kind of, you know, propose that to the panel, and we can kind of respond to that. So the question around what are the urgent issues that are impacting Black communities? What are the issues that we should be focusing on? And kind of, yeah, it's quite a broad question, but I think it kind of open up various different kind of angles and kind of how we want to maybe approach that question. So I'll pass it on to everyone else. Bo?
I'm just going to say briefly, obviously with this year, COVID-19 and resurgence of Black Lives Matter and institutional racism, with the killing of George Floyd, you know, highlighting something that everybody who's Black and brown already had been experiencing, you know, forever. It's just kind of, you know, shone a spotlight on it, but we already knew this was all going on. And obviously with COVID-19 and the way it impacts disproportionate, you know, Black people are 4 times more likely to die of COVID-19 and the whole inequality, poverty issue. And also just around kind of activism and, you know, community organizing. I kind of feel like, you know, things that are happening now, you know, we talk about history as in the past, but history is happening all the time, and particularly this year. I feel like the whole year, 2020, has been Black history and Black activism. So that's just what I want to mention.
Thank you, Bo. Do we have Shan?
Yeah, just kind of to follow on from what Bo said around the activism. So I think it's important to actually keep the momentum going around, you know, the resurgence of Black Lives Matter, because I think in the moment it felt different to how it had ever felt before. But then when lockdown kind of started to ease, it was kind of like the conversation wasn't going as much. Obviously, people were posting Black squares and then their feed went back to normal. It was like it was a trend. And what Next Gen, and I know a lot of other organisations, and obviously you guys in this group as well, wanted to make sure that it didn't die down. So continuing to speak out about any injustices we see, even if it doesn't directly affect our community, like locally, like for example, what's happening in Nigeria right now, we need to really keep coming together and speaking out about these things. And I think that's one of the ways that we can work to make permanent change within, you know, our Black communities, but just for all Black people globally. And yeah, I think that's my focus for it at the moment.
Thank you, Shan.
I just wanted to continue on for Next Gen. I think, you know, conversations like this are really important, but what's more important is actions. And I think that sometimes gets lost because the fact that we are always attending panels like this, which is absolutely amazing, it's great to have the conversation. But what I think more important is what are we taking away from this today? What is everyone going to be doing tomorrow to be proactive in making sure that a change is coming? For example, take the curriculum. You know, everyone wants to decolonize the curriculum. So we got in contact with schools and said, we're doing this Black History Week, this is what we're doing, happy for you to attend. I think sometimes people are waiting for permission to do things, and whether that's from the Black community or the white community, but no one needs permission. It's very much, let's be active. The only way to make a change is to do it. And so, you know, have the conversations, but also where's the timelines, what are the goals? And it's really important for us to come together as a community and hold each other accountable. You know, we work with other organisations, and you know, we make sure that they're keeping up to kind of their end of the bargain when, you know, we're doing community projects with them. But I think that's the biggest thing, and I think that's something that 2020 is raised, because, for example, with George Floyd, the protests that were happening, you know, the Black Squares, the Blackout Tuesday, all those were actions, and those actions caused a reaction, which then caused change, which would then change the law, and that's how we get things done.
Beautifully said, thank you. Do we have any of our other speakers that want to comment on this question? Danielle?
Okay, so also when we talk about Blackness, I want to include in the conversation Black trans women. I like to mention the violent epidemic facing them on a daily basis. Like, I often think, are they as respected or valued by the majority of Black folks? And I really don't think so, and that's quite devastating. And like, okay, it's often the hate towards Black trans men is often viewed through a lens of patriarchy. And it's that same patriarchy that doesn't even respect like cis women. Like, and that's keeping cis women oppressed. So like we all have a common enemy here, and we all have to recognize that. We just have to come together for safety and refuge for all Black women, really. And whenever we hear somebody coming with a microaggression towards a trans person, it's just about like pointing it out, correcting them, not being afraid to, you know, be shamed by your friends, because, you know, equality.
Thank you, Danielle. Really poignant points there. I think we had Lisa. You put your hand up, and then we'll go to Shakayla, if that's okay.
Earlier this week I did a panel. I don't usually nowadays do events during Black History Month. First of all, I run an organisation where, you know, we do Black History all year round. We don't need to do anything for Black History Month too tough, really. But I was grabbed by this particular panel that we're on now, and another panel that I did earlier this week, which is about Black joy. It's about Black radicalism and Black joy. And obviously Black radicalism is something that many people associate with terrorism, all sorts of, you know, nonsense, you know, that it's militant, that it's violent and all these things. And of course, Black radicalism is about really getting back to the roots, about really looking at transformation, and it's about creating and imagining our own worlds. And so I think, first of all, I think we've got to temper some of the stuff that we look at with our own joy and healing. So, you know, if we're looking at police brutality, if we're looking at hatred towards trans people, if we're using Black History Month spaces to look at these things, then we also temper it with stuff around Black power naps, around rest as reparations, around healing justice, and those types of things. I think we also need to, one of the issues facing us really right now is, I think really as Black people, it's not really necessarily about all uniting. I am into unity, don't get me wrong, but it's a problematic vision in the sense that we are allowed to be diverse, and we don't all have to think the same things and want exactly the same things in order to envisage a collective freedom. But I think an issue that we really need to look at now is, how do we look at how our Black lives connect with each other, how they connect with each other in Nottingham, how they connect with each other across the UK, how they connect across the diaspora and globally. and where can we find those connections and those sort of starting places to start looking at what our collective freedom looks like. Because, you know, for me, I just want to get up in the morning and not have to think, what is my Black life going to be up against today? I want a colourless awakening where I can just be me, loving being Black, not thinking about what's going to be problematic today because I'm waking up as a Black woman in the UK. So I think that's, for me, what I'd love to see is spaces where we can just start imagining worlds where we can all just be free and what that collective freedom looks like.
Sounds like a beautiful world, most definitely. Thank you, Lisa. Shakayla.
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of add to Danielle's point, really valid. And so I wanted to kind of look at, you know, intersectionality a bit more, because this isn't a conversation that is, you know, been happening today or yesterday, you know. And so when I am exploring identity and politics, you know, because it is my experience inevitably, you know, it's really important that I recognize, you know, those who have done the work, you know, who's paved the way, who's laid the foundations, who's fought a different fight, you know, the fight still remains. It's just that it manifests in different ways today, you know. And so for me, a foundational text that has inspired my work, you know, in music, working in the creative sector, and perhaps many of those, you know, whose work sits in the realms of activism and fighting for justice, is the Combahee River Collective, who in short were a group of Black feminist visionaries. And they started their own movements and conversations around identity politics because as they existed, their needs, particularly as like Black queer women, you know, were not recognized, or were they welcomed by the organizers of the civil rights movement back then, nor were they welcomed or recognized by the feminist movement back then. So some just, you know, if you wanted to look into it, some of the founding members included, you know, Barbara Smith, Audre Lorde, Demeter Frazier. And so for me, it's really important when I am thinking about Black history, when I'm thinking about Black now, when I'm thinking about Black futures as well, is that it's really important to be inclusive in the sense that, you know, all Black lives matter when we are looking at, you know, the Black community, that we're all very much, as I said, we live nuanced experiences. We have, you know, unique perspectives, and, you know, we face different challenges on a daily. We're not just all kind of grouped together just because of the color of our skin. We all have different challenges. So for me, it's just, again, just to have, it's really important to ensure that we do recognize how, you know, how vastly different we all are, you know, and there's a lot of beauty in that, you know. And so we don't have to agree on everything as a Black community, for sure, like that's really unrealistic. But like ultimately for me, like respect and manners are free, you know. So I think a lot can be done from that point.
That's so eloquently put. Yeah. Thank you. Shan.
Yeah, just to touch a little bit on what Shakayla said about all Black lives mattering. Also, another important focus is within our communities and our young Black men. You know, Janelle mentioned this earlier, everyone's quick to say Black Lives Matter, but we've got young Black boys killing each other on the streets, knife crime, all of that. That's definitely an urgent issue. And I think everyone does need to unite for this kind of thing. So we need to understand how we can actually come up with something that's impactful and sustainable and is going to actually tackle this issue, you know, on a permanent level. It's not something that's easy to change, especially when it comes to young people. It's hard to sort of get to them anyway, get through to them. So yeah, that's just another urgent issue particularly within our local community recently as well, that does need focusing on.
Thank you. I think we've got about a minute left. Lisa, you want to take that last minute?
Yeah, just briefly, I mean, yeah, it is really important we have those conversations. You're absolutely right, Shan. White supremacy is killing our young Black people. Young Black people are not killing young Black people unless you're looking at a very surface level. We've been set up to turn in on ourselves. We've been set up to divide amongst ourselves, to put hierarchies of Black lives, like some Black lives are more important than others, to turn on each other. So, you know, it's a bigger conversation about what our lives look like under this system of white supremacy, of you know, neo-colonialism,
yeah,
afterlives of slavery.
Yeah, we need to look at the repair of the rupture of our communities, don't we? Repair the constant transgenerational trauma that we've been forced to live with for hundreds and hundreds of years, you know? Absolutely. Good points from all of our speakers. Thank you, guys. I'm going to hand back over to Jade now, and we're on time. 3 o'clock, Jade.
Brilliant, amazing. So thank you for everybody who's spoken and can contribute to those 2 questions. I'm now going to open it up to the audience to propose questions and raise your hand like this, or use the little raise hand button. You'll find it at participants, and there's a little arrow, and you'll be able to raise your hand like that as well. But if you physically raise your hand, that will be useful. And then we'll spotlight your video, you ask your question to us. And please, if it's particularly centered to somebody, please mention the person that you're centering the question to, and then we can respond as so. So yeah, I'm handing it to the audience now. So we've got Dr. Keith Brown. Can you please unmute your mic? Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be part of this forum. It's been a good conversation so far. I just wanted to ask a question regarding Black history, because I think that our Black history is fundamental to us moving forward and fixing some of the psychosis that affects us. And I know that for a long time we've been saying that it should be taught in schools, but what does the panel think about us taking responsibility as a community and taking that responsibility to teach our children Black history, as other communities do? The British curriculum does not cover Chinese history. It does not cover Asian history, but Asian children are taught their histories in their homes, in supplementary schools. What does the panel think about the rebirth of Black supplementary schools going forward and using them as an engine to teach our boys and girls their history and their culture? Thank you.
Brilliant. So is there anybody in the panel who wants to address that question? Henry or Shan? Henry and Shan? Go with Shan first. And then...
Yeah, I'll be really quick. Yeah, so I think part of it is definitely the responsibility of, the Black community, to teach your children where they come from so they understand growing up sort of who they are and don't have as many identity issues as they may develop anyway. But I also think that we need to understand for a lot of the older Black generation especially, they might not want to do that because of trauma. So you talk about, Chinese people teaching their children their history, but they don't have the same trauma. And I guess it could be hard for them to find a way to sort of bring it up and address the problems that their children are going to face in society when knowing what they've been through. Obviously, when they were younger and growing up, it was obviously a different time then. So I do understand and I do agree. I mean, personally, for me, I would definitely be teaching my children everything, whether Black history is in school when I've got kids or not. But I do understand why some of the older generation, for example, my parents, some of my friends' parents might not have addressed it, kind of, if that makes sense.
Henry?
Let's be realistic to ourselves. The fundamental truth of this is we're waiting for government to add it to syllabus or to put it in a curriculum. We're going to be waiting for a long time. Easy and understandable. As he said, the question, Kevin, if I'm right, the Chinese the government not going to have it in the curriculum, the Chinese history in the curriculum. Look, I have a children that have a Polish background, and they speak the right fluently Polish. How do they do it? The community, the responsibility of this is down to the parent. It's down to me, you, individual. This is how we want our kids to be brought up. This is how we want our history. If we love our heritage, we love our history. We have to cherish it. We have to modernize it, put it in a way that is going to suit our children. We don't have to wait for government to put it in a syllabus or to teach them in school. When we're talking about Black in general, we've been divided already. Within ourselves, we divide ourselves. Not to talk of government is divide us. So how do you want in Nigeria that we have like over 200 ethnic group? So then I'm a Yoruba descendant. I have Igbo. Then if the government is going to teach that in school, what are they going to teach? Black history, or what about my own culture? So if we're going to teach about Black history today, tomorrow, or we're going to talk about the history of Jamaica, history of Barbados, history of this, history of that, let parents take their responsibility and teach their children their heritage, their culture, and where they're from and what they believe in. Then let us face the fundamental truth of the education system that we need to encourage support our children according to, so that this division is not going to be up running here and there. Because this is a country we live, we are so diverse. We have the Indians, we have everybody are teaching their children. They speak their languages, they know their culture, if they want to do wedding ceremonies, stuff like that. They practice their culture, they bring it out to the high street. We see things happening. So why do we have to push government to say, do this for us? Where we can just come together as one and do it for ourselves.
Thank you, Henry. And I'm just going to have a look again for any hands up from audience members. Lisa, do you want to respond to that?
Just while you're looking for another question, I'm just wondering if any of the audience members have heard of the Free Black University. Absolutely amazing. Free Black University isn't really spending its energy on decolonising the curriculum in universities and begging universities to do better, which they should have been doing from 19 long time. They've just said, right, we'll create our own university and it's going to be free. And so rather than having to reform something that's already there or work hard to undo the harmful stuff, they're just saying, let's create something beautiful and new from scratch. And it's led by young Black people. It's absolutely beautiful. And here in the UK, they're looking at ways that they can make that sustainable through subscriptions and etc., so that it's passed on free to the people who want to attend it. So look out for that one, and also use it as an inspiration for us to think about how we create our own stuff, like the Saturday schools that Dr. Brown just mentioned.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Lisa. And yeah, Bo, have you got something?
I was just going to mention that I've just put in the chat the Black Curriculum organisation that, they're a consultation organisation, so they provide, they've devised their own Black curriculum, so they advise schools. Obviously, we just heard from Next Gen, the work that they're doing. I've also put in the chat about the Free Black University, the link to their website if anyone wants to have a look at that. But as Henry and other people have saying, it's not about waiting for the government to change the curriculum or decolonising the museum or decolonising the this. It's about, people being entrepreneurial and setting up things. I think that's the way forward, rather than trying to hit your head against a brick wall and change something. Why not just, being the change makers? Like the work that grassroots community organisations are doing. Yeah, that was just what I wanted to mention.
Shakayla, can you unmute your mic?
Yeah, here we are. Sorry about that. Just quick, that's really simple, but like super effective. If you're into reading, like join a free, join a reading online book club. A lot of those have popped up in parts, especially in pandemic. People are like shifting, conversations and holding spaces for us, by us, online, you know. There's loads of examples, but one that I'm quite particularly interested in, just because I like her music as well, so biased. But No Name, she runs a monthly book club. But the part that I really like about it is there's a free reading program, and so what they do is offer each month they offer one essay as an alternative to their monthly book picks. You know, it's super accessible, it's relatable, you know, just by virtue of like the connection of like who we are. You know, so yeah, that's a really good way, alternative way to educate in our history, what we're doing today, and how we can imagine futures. You know, because everything's an imagined reality. You know, so we're powerful people, man.
For real, man, for real. I just want to add on to that, and I want to say also, Shakayla and Bo are part of the Black Curators Collective, and that came out of also, you know, arts education and how we learn, and actually, you know, do people know any Black curators, you know, in the UK? Where's the awareness of that? Where is the education in terms of kind of the Black arts movement, but also kind of contemporary artists that are working currently? And also when we think of education, we think of arts education as well. And it's also very key and important to have, you know, arts education that is inclusive, that is broad, that is far-reaching. And the Black Curators Collective as a network itself, we hold personal histories and personal knowledge. And we should also value that equally as other kind of histories. It's important that we create spaces, be that physical or online, to share those histories, to share those stories within ourselves. And the Black Curators Collective as a network, we've been sharing best practice, we've been discussing strategies for change, we've been collectively activating and also having important conversations that will lead to action. I think also thought can be action, because if thought and sharing of thought leads to somebody doing something in their community, that is also important. So I think conversations always have to be followed up. They always have to be done where there's an element of care, where everyone's kind of positionality is cared for within that conversation, valued within that conversation. So I just wanted to kind of say that there is a lot of resources that NAE could potentially share. And also we've got events coming up as well. Also Marseille, who's currently kind of coordinating the chat, will add in our kind of future events as well. And we run a book club with All Black Connect. And so if people are interested in reading, please do check that out as well. But yeah, have we got any more questions from the audience? Just having a look. Mal?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for all your time, or your generosities. I guess my question was to Shan and Next Gen. So it sounded like you guys were saying that you'd sensed kind of an openness to, particularly from the educational sector, to, you talked about being very proactive, and that you were sensing an openness from people from school wanting to take on this kind of notion of decolonizing the curriculum. I was just wondering whether that felt like a shift in the last year since the events of this summer, George Floyd's death and everything that's gone alongside that. And yeah, I just wondered whether you felt that that was authentic and that you were sensing a kind of a shift in society at the moment. And yeah, that was to Shan and Next Gen.
Oh, I am unmuted, sorry. Yeah, so Next Gen, we only started in June this year. So, I mean, we don't necessarily have anything to compare it to. We weren't involved in, you know, activism before then or anything like that. Like, it was literally, we did the protest and we just realized like we can't give up now. But yeah, decolonizing the curriculum was something that we sort of addressed immediately. I mean, when we first started, we actually did a survey that we put out to the community and asked them what they want us to like work towards changing. And that was like the main one that came up. We held a youth focus group, and even the kids are saying the same thing, like we want to learn about, you know, our history. We don't want to just learn about white history. And yeah, it's definitely about making it known that, like Lisa said, Black history is global history. A lot of these Western countries wouldn't be here, wouldn't be the way that they were if it were Black people. The reception that we've had from schools, like I said, we've not really got anything to compare it to. We definitely only got a handful of schools interested, but the interest was definitely genuine. We got some great feedback, and like Janelle said earlier, it's something that we definitely want to continue, and hopefully more schools will get involved in the future.
Yeah, so if we're honest, we contacted every single primary and secondary school in Nottingham, and we only had 3 joiners for Black History Week. So, you know, we didn't want it to be forced, and this is the thing, we don't want to force people to do anything. We want it to be an option. If you would like to join us for Black History Week, if you would like some resources, you know, we're here, we're available, this is the dates, this is the times, you know, that we're doing these things. And as Shan says, we haven't got anything to compare it to. However, we have been reached out, a couple of other schools have now reached out to us, and the schools that we've been working with, they've also asked, you know, are there any other resources that we can have? We're working with some other community organisations to look at not just Black history, and I think this is one of the big things that we're trying to challenge is we don't want to just learn about Black history in history. We want to add Black people into English, science, maths, and this is really important. And obviously we're coming from a Black perspective, but obviously other communities can do that for their community as well. And I think that's really important. So yeah, we're just gonna carry on.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that question, Mel, and thank you for your answers as well. They're fantastic. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Does any of the speakers have any questions proposed to other speakers? Lisa?
Yes, I'd just like to hear from, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, from the speakers or anyone in the audience as well. If we are thinking that actually, you know, we're going to be successful in getting this Black history, you know, accepted as part of global history, and that eventually we move away from even having to have a Black History Month, how do we actually get there? What do you think? How do you think we can make Black History Month look different in the next year, couple of years, 5, 10 years, so that we're actually realizing that vision in 1926 for Black history just to be absorbed into what we learn 365?
I think we need a plan. That's it. We need a plan, we need goals, and we need a timeline in order to get this done. And I also think it's really important. You know, we were on some meetings with Black Lives Matter London, Birmingham, other organisations up and down the country back in July. And one of the things that we were saying is that in order to make a change in the whole of the UK, we need to kind of focus on our city and kind of make the changes there and then move forward. But it's definitely, you know, a collective thing that if we, for example, had, you know, organisations in every single city, you know, with a specific plan. So the Black curriculum, you know, they've got a particular plan of how they think it should happen. If we were all to follow that plan, for example, you know, then we'd start to make a change.
Yeah, following on, I definitely agree. I think for us, we think it does start with, you know, changing the curriculum, and getting Black history in school. Like Janelle said, we want it in every lesson. So if you're learning about English, you're learning about Black authors or Black poets as well. If it's part of the year-long curriculum, then there wouldn't be a need for specific events in Black History Month, and ultimately that could lead to, you know, not needing a Black History Month. Also, it's important to when they're old enough, you know, they've got the right idea.
Yeah, Bo?
I was just going to briefly say that I know that during the summer there was a massive national petition about trying to get the Black history on the curriculum, and, you know, send it to the government, and they rejected it. So I just think it's going to be really difficult trying to get, you know, the actual entire curriculum, you know, changed, because I think it's been it's been discussed for quite a long time. It's been very, very difficult. That's why I think these initiatives are very good. You know, instead of waiting for the government to do something, or trying to get something done via the, you know, the institutions, etc. It's a bit like the toppling of the statue in Bristol. You know, they've been trying to get rid of that statue get rid of that statue for something like 20 years, apparently, because everyone was saying you shouldn't have, you know, pushed it over. It should go through the official channels. But they've been trying to do something for 20 years. So that's what I wanted to say.
Well, let me buttress both points and Lisa with just the same thing I've said earlier. Waiting for government. It's why do we have to wait for government? And I've not heard about the Free Black University. So, well, if I have to do my research on that, how many people actually patronize that? How many people take advantages of it? And how long has it been going for? So going through the government and say, oh, we want Black history education, we want the curriculum to be changed, we want to add this, we want to add that. Like I said earlier, we will continue to wait and wait and wait, rather than we stand up and stand for ourselves and say, okay, set up a panel, a group of NGO organization, how you want to do it down in London or geographical, down the country, pick up how we're going to organize it, and have that kind of a working university or colleges or want to do it if it's going to be Black history. Let's not forget, I'm still saying this, if you say Black history, we are divided. It's difficult. Support if it's going to work, and every resources that is going to work, I will follow it. But because we have different understanding, different culture, different meaning, we have to take that into account as well. We cannot ignore that and say we want to do Black history. What makes Black history? It's through our culture, the building history we're talking about. It's through our differences, through what we believe that build this history we're talking about. So if I want to say I want to study Black history, obviously I want to study particularly about, I want to study about a particular country. Because if I have to mention one person or two persons, definitely I want to know the background of that person. So I want to know where it connects to, what we connect to. So we're talking about educating ourselves, or we want to establish on this. We have to stand up for ourselves and establish it. Like I said earlier, we are part of the people who started the Polish Academy. We started from 4, now it's massive. And they are set. Now they've been taking it in GCSE. And the language, they are allowed to write it in GCSE, Polish language here in this country. So you can see how far they have gone. Thank you.
Thank you. Shakayla?
There we go. Can you hear me? Cool. So
yeah.
I think Just from like a creative sector perspective, you know, I've always seen the creative industries as an opportunity to recreate the blueprints, right? We're supposed to be leading by example, but in reality, you know, that's not the case, because oftentimes there are obviously issues around representation, around marginalized individuals, underrepresented individuals occupying like senior, you know, positions, and not because they're not capable or qualified to do so, but because, you know, the reality is that the system isn't set up to support, you know, inclusivity, and not saying that landscapes aren't changing or not shifting, but obviously there's still much more work to be done. There's a lot of initiatives happening right about now, again, which again is encouraging, but I still think it's really important for us to continue to kind of, you know, tell our stories, you know, and continue to creating, so that we don't have to fit within, you know, 31 days of like hoping that someone will see us and program us or select us or commission us. It's, you know, that's not good enough, because we contribute so greatly, so vastly to, you know, to this world. You know, we need more than it. This shouldn't even be a conversation in the first place, you know. And I just think there are some really brilliant examples of like, you know, role models and who identify as Black, you know, who are also excelling in their fields and shaping culture and making history, you know, right now, you know. And some of those examples include, you know, Issa Rae, Michaela Coel, Kobito, you know, for example. So I'm a big advocate for like continuing to telling our stories, you know, because it helps us to walk in our truth, you know, it helps us to walk in conviction, and, you know, and equally importantly, it helps us to kind of like close the gap of misunderstanding, confusion, and sometimes wild assumptions of who we are as a community.
Thank you so much. So I think we're going to draw to a close now. I just want to say a few words. So NAE is committed to being an anti-racist organisation. We are committed in being leaders in our field in terms of, as Shukayla was saying, as creative practitioners, as a creative organisation, we should be open and accessible and accountable. We should be a space that people feel they can access, enter, you know, that they can use the facilities, that they can host informal conversations. It should be civic space, a community space, as well as an art institution. And I think there's a lot of people in our organisation that are committed to, you know, NAE becoming basically a community space. And so in terms of this programme, Beyond Black History Month, as suggested in the title, we will continue all year round to programme and centre Black voices, Black creatives, Black communities. And so look out for more events coming up. This is just the start of this programme, and we continue the conversations and activate and also generate new perspectives on the value of Black History Month, but also on the issues and urgencies that are important to Black communities. We want to be responsive, we want to be flexible, we want to be an institution that's publicly owned. We want people to feel connected to us. So thank you all for listening. Thank you to all the speakers, your generosity, your time, your absolute amazing answers and kind of contributions. I am completely excited by, you know, everyone's contributions, and just really excited to see where this program goes. And hope everyone has a really good Saturday. Sending healing vibes to everybody. Look after yourself, take care of yourself, center yourself, center your communities, reach out to people. And that's all I want to say. So thank you guys, and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.